Did you know that you may be getting support from the higher realms? What does that support look like? What should we watch out for? And what are the various higher levels of beings that are doing what they can do to help? Today, we're going to be talking about the Counsel, allies, and guides, what makes them different, how they work, and how they can help us. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part of this episode. The group frequency calibration at the end is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. My name is Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing allies, guides, and the Counsel, help from the higher realms.
So those of you who don't know, I am an acupuncturist and I have a practice.
Yeah.
And I've gotten psychic readings in the past, and all of those people have said that there's guides with me in the treatment room, like spirit guides. And I'm wondering, in your opinion, do we receive help from higher planes like that? Guides, ascended masters?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, totally. So we can, and you're right. So even if you look at tarot cards, right? There's like Ascended Master tarot cards. There's like light worker cards. There's like angel card. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things, and people talk about guides all the time, and it can be really confusing. Like, what does all that mean? Okay, so again, this is from my perspective on spirit level reading frequency signatures, right? Just so that people understand where it is that I'm speaking from. Okay, so from my perspective, there's, I'm going to talk about the Counsel, okay, which you and I have talked about, I think, before in the past, but we're going to talk about the Counsel. We're going to talk about guides, and we're going to talk about ascended masters, because I think those are things that people come across in their journeys, and I think it's important to know a little bit about them. Okay, so your Counsel. So the Counsel is of the highest resonance possible. Okay. The function of the Counsel is to help beings that are rising in consciousness to rise faster and higher. That is their function. They are there to help consciousness rise, period. Okay. So it's not about like, do you know what I mean? There's no like judgment around it. It's just like, is this being quickening, like in terms of the frequency resonance enough and consistently enough that we come in to help?
And it's a team, or?
Yes, that's a really good question.
Yeah, a council wouldn't be one person.
Yeah. Okay, so they tend to be around people. So this is voluntary. Okay, so they choose. So it's not. So what will happen is that as you rise in frequency resonance, more and more beings will enter your Counsel. Okay, because they will sort of like stake their own frequency resonance behind yours to give you more momentum upward. Does that make sense? It's sort of like they give you a vote of confidence, but they come into the Counsel to give you more momentum. And it's a tremendous honoring when that happens. You can't request it. You can't be like, oh, okay, so I'd like to have the Buddha in my Counsel. Like that.
Can you request a Counsel in general?
No.
Oh, they just come to you.
Yes, it has nothing to do with what you want as a human.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with that. You can want them all day long, but they choose when they come in. Okay. And these are beings of a very high consciousness and a very high resonance, and you don't summon them. They come to you when they feel like they want to. So different beings can enter this Counsel, right? So a lot of people, like for example, the being that is known as Jesus is obviously infinite, when he's not embodied, and he will come onto, or I'm saying he loosely, but that being will be on different people's Counsel. It's not like they're like locked into one Counsel. Obviously, they're infinite, and they're very high resonance order. Yes. So they can be in different Counsels. Okay?
All at once,
Yeah, all at once, and so different beings will step in. What can happen, like as I said, as you rise in consciousness, also higher level beings will enter your Counsel, like the being that was known as the Buddha, or the being known as the Christ, or the being that was known as Thoth, or whatever it is. Okay, so they will come in based on, like I said, how high your own frequency resonance is and how fast you're moving. Okay, so they're very special. They are, like I said, what is their function? Their function is to help your frequency resonance rise, period. Okay, if you stop, like you can choose to stop anytime. You have free will. You can just like I'm kind of like want to just stop rising in resonance right now for whatever reason. Like say you chose that, your Counsel would no longer it would shift because remember,
Their only purpose
is to help consciousness rise. So if you're not rising anymore, that's great. That's your choice. But why would they stay in your council? They're not going to.
Yeah.
Okay. So
so the council's fluid.
The council is fluid. Now, now what I will say is if you're a high enough resonance, okay, and you're holding that resonance deliberately, they'll stay in the council. Does that make sense? Because you haven't decided to peace out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's different because you're holding that resonance in a different way. Even though you're not rising, if you're at high enough resonance and you hold that resonance, even though you may not be ascending, that in itself is helpful, is enough. So I just want to make a distinction there.
Yeah, that's clear.
Yeah. So the council, like I said, is not someone you can't, they give you permission to do certain things. It's not like you just ask them and then you get it. Does that make sense? So, for example, I have on a very, very small number of occasions, like just a couple, been allowed to have people in a GFC, for example, in a very fast-moving mastermind, come up and be in the resonance of my council. But they granted me permission to do that. Okay, so
for someone else.
Yeah, so they. Yeah, so because I'm of a certain resonance, so therefore my council is bigger, and I mean this is not better than, please no. It's just it happens to be bigger, and there are more beings in it than people of a lower resonance because that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So if somebody who's of a lower resonance gets to be in that resonance which is higher, they get a lot of momentum.
Yes.
So I was allowed, even though they're heavier, right, to bring them up momentarily, and then let them and release them so they can do whatever they do to adjust up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That is not because I requested it.
They told you.
Yeah, they granted it to me.
Okay.
It wasn't like I was just like, hey guys, I'd like to put in my submission for what I would like to request this week.
Nope.
That's not how it works. It was allowed in that moment.
Okay.
So not everybody has a council.
Right.
That's the thing, because you have to be, again, moving up in your resonance. Now, frequency work isn't the only way, obviously, that you can rise in your resonance. There are other ways. I don't actually know what they all are, but there are other ways. Obviously. Yeah. There's not just one way. There never is. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is your allies and your kin. Okay, so I just want to talk about these two things, and then I'm going to talk about guides.
Okay.
Last. All right.
And ascended masters.
Yeah, and ascended masters tend to be guides, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay. So what is kin and what are allies? Okay. They're very different. So people may not know the word kin. It's an old word, which means like related to. They're like close to you in some way, okay? So if they're your kin, so if something of a higher order is your kin, it means that you run that resonance through you. So you're kind of like known to them. So for example, a lot of people will talk about the angels, okay? But even say, for example, the dolphins or the fairies or medicine horses, if you have the resonance that's similar to theirs running through you, they recognize you as sort of like related, that you're part of them. They're relatable to you in some way, just like your family is kind of. So, and as a result, because you have that running in you, it's easier to access that frequency because it's already running in you. And they are predisposed towards helping you. Because it's like, you know, your cousin or like your mom or like your brother, you know, but it's not like family like in the human sense, but I just mean like that level of closeness. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's a level of closeness it's not usual.
Yes.
And so
and again, you don't pick it, it kind of picks you.
It picks you.
Yeah.
Yes. So there are people, for example, who are kin with the dolphins, right? And they've been, you know, I don't know, in the middle of the continental United States, and they've never seen dolphin, like they've never been near a dolphin in their whole life, right? They're in somewhere like Montana, okay? There's like no sea anywhere near them, okay? But they've had dreams of dolphins, they love dolphins, they don't know why they do, and then one day they go to the sea, and they're like, and then dolphins appear out of nowhere. People are like, oh my God, the dolphins are here. Like the dolphins will show up and we'll start to do work on that person. Do you see? They'll start to do work on that person, even though they're not necessarily, do you see what I mean? They've been landlocked their whole life. So there's a little example of this. So a friend of ours has a son and he has this in him. So he's kin with the dolphins.
Okay.
And ever since he was like 4, he was like obsessed with dolphins, right? So if you wanted to make this kid happy, you would give him like a stuffed animal that looked like a dolphin or like a dolphin sticker or like whatever it is. Like
dolphin
whatever thing
something.
with a dolphin on it, he wanted it.
Yeah.
Okay. So they lived in New Zealand at the time. And where there were no dolphins. And anyway, they made this journey, and they were going to go to meet somebody on a ferry or something like this. And so as they literally are approaching the pier. Okay, they're literally, because they come from wherever they live to this place, and dolphins swim into the harbor. This boy literally walks onto the pier, and dolphins swim into the harbor. That never happens. Like, we're in this particular place. They're like, why are the dolphins here? They were coming for him.
Wow.
Does that make sense? They're like, oh, look, it's our friend.
Yeah. Right.
So
because he's running that frequency.
He's running
and
that
they
frequency.
Feel that.
And they're his kin. So they're just like, we're meeting our cousin. It's not like our cousin, but you know what I mean? It's like our family is here. So they came, and they were around a lot, and and they were working on him, even though he was on the land and they were in the water. Make sense? So things like this can happen. Like I said, it can happen with fairies. It can happen with all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
Right? So there are beings that are your kin that you run that frequency of, that it feels very familiar to you. Okay, and they will show up to help you. Okay, so
I wonder about my daughter Pepper, because when she was like, she's only 2, but even when she was 1, she's seen Buddha heads, and she would, before she was even really talking, she would look at one and go, oh, Dodi, and like, she called it Dodi for some reason, but it was like watching her see a friend she hasn't seen in a million years, and then she became obsessed with Buddhas. Then now that she's talking more, she'll call them Buddha. When I wrap her in a towel after her bath, she goes, I'm like Buddha. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Nobody taught her this at all.
Yeah.
She has this Buddha affinity.
Yeah. So she's had multiple lifetimes being either with him and or reincarnating devoted to him. Makes sense?
Interesting.
So he is her friend.
That is so funny.
So he sits in her council.
Oh.
It makes sense. It's actually making me
it's emotional. Making me too, because I've seen her look at it like it was like an old friend.
Yeah. Because he is.
Oh my gosh.
She knows him.
So
like
sweet.
On a very deep level.
And some woman who's like, you could look at her and think maybe she's almost homeless, like kind of out there, but she's not homeless. Yeah. Out there but connected but not here.
Yeah.
She even said to Pepper, she doesn't know her, she's like, wow, she has Buddha energy.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, that's so true. This Buddha theme.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can look for that.
Yes.
And see like,
So she's special. You're doing all the work. Well, she's a new consciousness kid, first of all.
Yep.
You're doing the work that you're doing. So is your partner. And as a result, she already has a counselor too. I mean, it's kind of amazing.
So cool.
Right? So, and she knows him. And that's why he's there, because he's like, this is not only is in her counsel, but he has a love for her because they have a connection that's more than usual. Okay, she's special.
Oh,
okay.
Wow. So sweet.
So that's I just want to make that distinction.
Yes,
so
the kin,
and then counsel. So now we're talking about allies.
Allies.
So there are beings that when you get to a certain level of resonance, okay, you can ask certain beings to be your ally. You're asking permission. The fairy are not my kin. Okay, they're not my kin at all. I don't run that frequency. It's not native to me.
You don't connect with it really.
It's not that's not who I am.
Yeah.
But they are my allies because they have granted me that permission. So they've indicated to me that they are. So that means that if I need them, I can call them and they'll come. Okay? So that to me is very special. So it's like a special friend. You know what I mean? So they're your allies. So any number of beings can be someone's allies. Okay? So but I just want to make this really clear to people. You have to be clear enough to be able to do it. Okay? So meaning you have to be of a certain resonance before you can ask
you can request,
and they'll answer, and it be the thing that you're asking for. So meaning, in all of this, I just want to make it clear that it requires a certain clarity of your frequency resonance, because a lot of times what can happen. So first of all, the counsel won't even appear until you're moving up in resonance. Okay, with the kin and for the allies, the kin that frequency is running through you, but you need to be clear enough in your own resonance to have certain things happen, like with that boy with the dolphins, for example. Okay. Things can show up as your allies that look like something, or like your guides that look light but are really dark. So meaning they're trying to be like, hey, you desperately want to be special, and I know you love fairies, so I'm going to show up as a fairy or as an angel or as somebody because I want to come into your space and you so badly want to be connected with these things. I'll use that to come in. Oof. Does that make sense? So I'm just saying this, not because it's about better than or worse than. It's about really your frequency resonance. When you clear your distortions and you become stronger internally, and you're not vested or attached in having these things be this way for you because it means something about you and how special you are, that's when they become apparent to you. Because when you have that yearning, that desire, it can be manipulated actually by the darkness, right? So you have to be a little bit mindful about.
Well, I mean, you've
who
said
presents.
yourself, like, yearning is like, you don't want to yearn. You have said, we had talked about this in the past, because that implies you don't have
Have it, yes.
And now you're putting out scarcity, basically.
Exactly, yeah. Yearning means like a strong desire for something.
Right,
Often
that you don't have.
Is an indicator,
lacking,
that you're in lack, that you don't have that thing, that you're in scarcity. Exactly.
Right.
So just for you guys to know, okay? So I'm going to talk about being aware in a little bit. Okay. So the next thing, so that's allies, okay? So I just want to talk about allies, kin, and counsel. Counsel, don't forget, is the highest level.
Yeah.
Okay? This is not, it's not even close to these other two things. Now, the guides.
Yeah.
Let's talk about guides, because a lot of people will ask about guides. You know, you have guides around you. So yes. So guides tend to be, well, they are there because whether or not you have an awareness, you have a relationship with them. And there's an agreement. It's not a contract. It's just an agreement, like between friends. I'm going to help you get to here. Okay, so meaning, so some guides will be with you for a short period of time, right? Like my job is to get you from here to here, right? Once you get here, I'm out, right? So we agreed that I would help you in this way. Probably you've helped them, whatever it is, but there's like some kind of help, okay? Some guides are with you for a lot longer. It really depends on your relationship with the guide, what the agreement is between the two of you, what your relationship is when you're not in embodiment. Some guides, okay, I just want to, it gets a little overlappy, okay, because it's not linear.
Okay.
Some guides are beings that are in what I call your soul family.
Oh yeah, we've kind of talked about this.
Yes,
okay.
That's right. So people who you have reincarnated with many, many times before, okay, so meaning
soul groups.
Soul groups,
yeah.
Yeah, and they're there to help you accelerate and ascend, right? It's kind of like a version of the council, but you know, they're like your buddies, right? You tend to reincarnate.
And these are actual people.
Yeah, no, they're beings. Okay, so they're not necessarily humans.
Oh, okay.
So they're beings who are not incarnate right now, right?
Oh.
So here they are.
Okay.
Okay. So you might have been in family groups in past lives. It might have been that you were close friends. It might have been that you actually didn't know each other at all very well, but that you came together, and in that short period of time that you interacted, there was like something that sparked, and each of you learned from it. For example, that would be somebody who's part of your soul family. Does that make sense?
And you can never be embodied together?
You know, you can be.
But you're just talking about the non-embodied
Yeah, I'm talking about the non-embodied version. Yes.
Got it.
So sometimes you are embodied together, sometimes you're not.
Okay.
So a guide can be somebody who's part of your soul family or soul group.
That's not embodied when you are.
That's correct.
Got it.
Okay.
That can guide you.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So they can show up.
Okay.
There are beings that are ascended masters who can show up to be your guides. Okay. So, for example, like Thoth, for example, the Egyptian god Thoth, who also showed up as Hermes in Greece. He's very old. He's been around for a long time, but ascended masters to me, okay, this is just my version of what an ascended master is. I don't know that necessarily everyone would agree, but ascended master is somebody who is incarnated once, at least as a human, and then ascended in their consciousness beyond the human. Okay, so Thoth has really accelerated in terms of the consciousness levels that he has experienced and can access, but he still has a memory of his humanness because he experienced it. Okay, so ascended masters can show up as guides, that type of thing, right? So there's any number of beings that can be your guide because they can, some star beings can show up as guides, for example, right? So there's no limit on like sort of the form. The challenge again is to just be aware of this very key thing, that if the guide or your ally is truly who they say they are, okay, so they're in alignment with pure source, when they show up and if you see them around you or you feel them in meditation or feel them or whatever, they will not press into your space. They won't try to come into you. Does that make sense? They won't not trying to like not trying to get too close to you. They're like respectfully away from you. Please, people, do this. Whatever appears to you, I don't care how they look to you. I don't care how bright they are, how glowy they are, how amazing they seem. Please ask, are you completely aligned with pure source? Okay, you ask that first.
And they can't lie?
Yeah, well, they can't actually.
Oh, okay.
They're not allowed to. So if they're dark, an entity, they'll change shape. They'll dissolve, they'll diminish, they'll get smaller, they'll disappear. They can't. When you ask them that question,
they can't.
They're not allowed to. I don't know why. That's just they just do.
Okay.
So I always ask that. I'm
Yes.
like, who are you?
Yeah.
You know, like just because you look all glorious, that
doesn't mean
anything.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Right. And so if they hold their form, if they get brighter, for example, then you know that they are. So it's good. And like I said, they won't try to come into you. They're not trying to trick you. They're just like respectfully, like if I remembered you from a past lifetime, but you don't remember me, I'm not gonna come right up and hug you. You know what I mean? I would be like, hey, Tia. Like I would hold my space. Like, how are you? I don't know that you remember me.
Yeah, there's an obvious respect.
Like a respect. And I'm just like, I'm trying to see like how comfortable you are with me being in your field. Right? Because you don't remember me. I might remember you, but you don't remember me. So because I love you, I'm not just gonna come like into your, that would just be
that's a
rude.
red flag if that happens.
Yes, exactly. So just be aware of that.
Okay.
So anyhow, guides can be really valuable. What I will say is the biggest thing is to know that, and this is going to sound terrible depending on how you receive it, guides can be extremely helpful and you don't need them. Okay? Because really, it's about clarifying yourself. You are strong enough to clarify yourself, to do the work, to release the distortion patterns, to rise in your frequency resonance. The guides are like extra gravy, right? They're there as like a nicety, but they're not required for you to rise in your frequency resonance and to awaken. I just want to make that really clear to people. Because some people are like, I don't even know if I have guides. You don't need them.
Yeah, doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think you've said that before, like crystals, guides, angels, they're all tools, right? But they're not, it's just you and pure source.
Yes, that's the most important thing. It's really about your relationship to pure source. So all those other experiences are wonderful and they're amazing and they can really be profound and like mystical and like just like kind of like breathtaking. And again, you don't need it to awaken. So because some people are like, I don't feel anything. It's okay that you don't feel anything.
Yeah.
You don't need all the bells and the whistles.
And that almost kind of gives your power away too, right? To something outside of you.
Exactly. And if you start to rely on those things, as opposed to doing the work yourself, exactly, you give your power away. It's not about them. It's about you. Now, if you do have them, they would want you to keep your power. That's the point, right? For you to recognize your own authority, your own power by clarifying yourself, releasing the density, coming into the memory of who you truly are as infinite, indestructible consciousness. So they're there to help you, and you know they don't want you to give them your power. That's not what their function is. You know.
Thank you for that distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of info. I think we need to like digest.
Totally.
Let it come, because a lot of it is, you know, like we've said before, like the unseen.
Yeah.
That can be a lot for some people. It's not like very linear stuff.
Yeah.
But thank you. Very important.
Yeah, you're most welcome. And for those of you who would like to listen to the group frequency calibration at the end, that will help you start to clarify yourself, start to gain your own power. So you realize that while the guides and all those things are helpful, it's really about clarifying your relationship with Source. And if you have been enjoying this series and would like to know when the next episode becomes live, hit the red subscribe button on the bottom right of this video. We're about to start the group frequency calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and where change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear to the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.